Welcome back. The Deputy Prime Minister has addressed one text message scandal this morning, but there's still a whodunit mystery in Canberra that has not been solved, and it sent the political spin cycle into overdrive. It all began when reportedly leaked text messages from Gladys Berejiklian were read to Scott Morrison on live TV.
Now, the former New South Wales Premier apparently called him a horrible, horrible person. That's the allegation. Who cares more about politics than people? She says she doesn't recall sending them, but also doesn't deny it. The Prime Minister says that he doesn't care either way what people think of him.
No one cares if the Prime Minister's feelings hurt, and I understand that. It doesn't matter.
Well, our masters of spin this morning, advertising and marketing experts Matthew Bywater and Dee Madigan. Good morning to you both. Matthew first, how do you rate their attempts to deflect all sorts of attention and bad news this week?
Yeah, it's hard because there is no getting out of this. And this is a bad look. One was terrible, but two is a disaster. So it's absolutely bad look. What he's got to do is just take the humble approach and don't get offensive. So when the PVO text with Gladys Berejiklian, he said some of the right things, but then mentioned about PVOs having some troubles of his own. Leave that alone. As soon as you play the man, you're not looking like you're in total control. He has to show that he doesn't get overly emotional. You can only be emotional if you're the victim. He's not the victim here. He's part of this problem. He has to sit back and be calm and act like a leader. And it's the same now. Even that little excerpt we saw earlier with Barnaby Joyce, when he mentioned with Barnaby Joyce and he said, well, he's been through some troubled times himself. Once again, he's playing the man. That's a bad look.
OK, Dee, you sort of talked about both, but this second scandal, which has come out overnight with Barnaby Joyce, how damaging is this one? And what do you think about Barnaby's press conference this morning and what he had to say?
I thought, well, it's damaging because it comes after we had the French president saying Morrison's a liar. We had Gladys saying he's horrible. We've had Barnaby, like it's a pattern of it. Barnaby's thing this morning I thought was quite extraordinary. As you brought up, he made it seem like he was a backbencher when he said it who didn't really know Scott Morrison, which is, of course, complete rubbish. He was Deputy Prime Minister when Morrison was a minister. They have known each other for decades and worked closely together. So whilst it didn't matter whether he should have written it or not, he thought it. He clearly thought it. And so I think it's extraordinary. I do find, though, Barnaby calling anyone a hypocrite, Mr. Family Values Man, is kind of ironic.
But what should he have said? Let's talk about Barnaby for a second.
I like what Barnaby said, and I think the thing about Barnaby Joyce is you've got to remember the character he is. He's one of the very few unscripted guys in Canberra. Guys and girls, should say, right? So people aren't going to remember the finer details. They're going to remember that he apologised, he said I was wrong, he said all the right thing. I apologised wrong. He offered his resignation. The finer details, you may be right, Dee, but people forget that. They remember the overarching thing. I screwed up, I shouldn't have sent it.
They're not going to remember the Barnaby thing. They're going to remember that Barnaby called Scott Morrison a liar. That's the bit that's going to stick. And for all of Morrison saying, well, I don't really care what people think of me, it's like you're literally going to be... You know, you're going for election, you're asking for people's votes. Yes, of course you care what people think about you.
Do you know, we're still potentially 3 or so months away from an election. How many more text messages are out there? And how many answers or responses are there going to be to them, I wonder? You know?
And it's like blood in the water with these things, as you know. All of a sudden, when there's one there and two there, the journos are going to be calling everyone because, you know, there's something there.
Matt, very quickly, are people going to remember this at the election?
I'm sure Dee will help them make them remember. I mean, this is just complete cheap, easy fodder.
All right, Matthew, Dee, thank you for that this morning. Well,